So what we're going to do in this position, I'm going to start with the ASIS, the anterior superior iliac spine. The reason for this, it's the only bone at the front, so it's a definitive structure that you're not going to confuse for anything else. From here, if you draw a straight line back, just slide this hand straight back, you can find the PSIS, and this is where it is here. If you find the PSIS, if you then put your index finger on that, rotate your hand down like an L shape, slide underneath the gluteal fold, you'll be on the ischial tuberosity straight away. From the ischial tuberosity to the ASIS, if you then rotate your hands and line them up together and go halfway, there's the greater trochanter. So the bones of the pelvis are in a triangle. It's the geometry of anatomy. From here, we can find 10 different muscles. If you find the ASIS, slide on back to the greater trochanter. If you look at this diagonal line here. If I then move half the way forward with my thumb towards the ASIS, then drop my finger off the ASIS, that is TFL, between your fingers already. If you want to find glute med, if you put your little finger on the ASIS, slide down to the greater trochanter, put your hyper and hypothenar eminence in your wrist onto the greater trochanter. Slide your fingers across the iliac crest. You'll notice only the first couple get on the iliac crest, the rest don't reach. Slide on back to the PSIS, put my little finger on the PSIS, wrap my fingers onto the iliac crest, and then pop this hand underneath, slide this one over the top. Follow that thumb to that little finger, that's the posterior border of glute med. Follow the little finger forward, that's the anterior border. Follow those fingertips across, that's the border along the iliac crest. So that is the size and shape of glute med, running down to my wrist here, going to the lateral and the posterior superior facet. If you want glute min, ASIS to the PSIS, come to here. Oh, where is it? There it is. Draw a straight line, mark thirds on that line. Forget the posterior third, because that's where the sciatic notch is. We're not going back there. And if we drop to here, come to the greater trochanter, move to the anterior aspect, because it's going to the anterior facet. That's glute min there, but deep to glute med. If we want piriformis, remember with the deep rotators, you've got 6 deep rotators. It kind of makes the rising sun of the rotators around the trochanter here. And piriformis is the most keflad of the deep rotators, which is why it's not down here, which is why it's up here. It's the next thing down after glute med, and no two objects can occupy the same space in time. So if we find the ASIS, slide back to the PSIS, get your ring finger on this hand, slide over, drop it into the sacral foramen of S2, which is inferior medial to the PSIS. Palpate the sacrum until you run out of sacrum. Pop your fingers on there. That's going to occupy S2, S3, S4. Piriformis runs from the anterior aspect of the sacrum between S2 and S4, and it's running diagonally to the trochanter. And piriformis pear-shaped means it's narrowing as it drops off. So this is where it exits the sacrum here. Here's the greater trochanter. That's why piriformis is up here. So next thing down after this, towards the posterior and inferior lateral angle of the sacrum, is coccygeus, and then coccygeus lines up here with gemellus superior. Now this will be in line with the spine of the ischium, which is also the attachment of the sacrospinous ligament, which turns the sciatic notch into the greater sciatic foramen. If we go just below that here onto the back of the ischium, we drop down here, we've got the ischium over here. We've got obturator internus is the next thing down. Then from there, we've got gemellus inferior. If we go down to the ischium and we come off the back of the ischium here, this chunk of muscle here is quadratus femoris, there, okay? You can't palpate obturator externus from the back because it's anterior to quadratus femoris. If we want to put the sciatic nerve on here, we can map that because the bone can show us where it is. So find the ASIS, PSIS, drop over here, S2, palpate down until I get to the bottom of the sacrum, S3, S4, take my S3 finger, slide it over because we've got to get outside the sacrum, go back to the PSIS, drop down to the ischium, go lateral to the ischium. That's the pathway of the sciatic nerve, because that's what the bone says. Okay. So there is the bones of the hip, there's 10 muscles, and the sciatic nerve as well, just found from the palpation of the bones.